Good morning, everyone. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all present here. Mr. Narayanan Ramaswamy, National Leader, Education and Skill Development, KPMG in India. Major General P.K. Sharma, Professor and Director, Amity Law School and Dean Faculty of Law, and all my fellow faculty members present here today. In the famous words of our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, startups are the engines of exponential growth, manifesting the power of innovation. Several big companies today are startups of yesterday. They were born with a spirit of enterprise and adventure, kept alive due to hard work and perseverance, and today have become shining beacons of innovation. Startup activities have not only grown significantly in number, but also in terms of creating a dynamic support system to foster enhanced levels of innovation and employment creation. According to a new analysis, the most important trend is higher education institutions are beginning to play a vital role in developing innovative competencies and have started including entrepreneurship as a core course in business education. Their growth has also brought together faculty members and students at universities and institutions to join in with their own ventures. There exist, however, several threats to the continuing development of the startup ecosystem because of prevailing social conventions regarding education and career choices, and the relative difficulty of doing business. The need of the hour is for the higher education institutes to understand and contribute towards the development of this startup ecosystem. With this in mind, the topic for today's session is the growing culture of startups and contributions of higher education institutes. Today's expert is Mr. Narayanan Ramaswamy, an alumnus of Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, and currently National Leader, Education and Skill Development, KPMG in India, with over 23 years of experience in management consulting and industry. His current focus is on education, skill development, and social sector advisory. He has experience across financial services and infrastructure sectors, spanning multiple solution offerings, business strategy processes, and performance improvement, organization and change management systems, and IT strategy. Mr. Narayanan leads a team of over 60 plus professionals exclusively focused on education and skilling, working across India, SAARC, Middle East, and African regions. He is an acknowledged thought leader and represents KPMG in multiple forums. He was invited to be a part of the expert committee to review the new education policy by the Government of India. He was also part of the Pawar Committee for Technology and Education, constituted by MHRD, besides being a part of various committees for education and skill development and leading industry forums such as CII and FICCI. May I now request Mr. Narayanan Ramaswamy to please address the gathering. The participants are requested to ask their questions using the chat box, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for such a generous and nice introduction. Thank you so much. It is always a pleasure to be part of an August forum like this, and especially if it is from Amity University, it is double the pleasure. And let me be honest and make a confession right up front. I don't know how good I am in this format where I don't see people at all. I'm a little bit of old world, I guess, but I'll try and do my best. The topic is very interesting, right? And I guess I have about an hour or so. Is that right, sir? Right, okay. So I would like to use this hour in a manner that is beneficial to all the audience. And hence, we will look at a format that will maximize, returns on this hour that you are going to invest in this particular presentation, right? And it always, after so many years, it still gives me the jitters when you talk to academicians, teachers, and who perhaps are the ones who are used to teaching from the other side. And imagine you trying and saying something to a teacher always. And hence this format helps. Like maybe I'm not seeing you face to face, gives me lesser jitters in that sense. But having said that, what I want to do is, like they say, I don't want to, preach. I want to share some of the experiences that I've been having. And I had the good fortune to work with universities. And I had the audacity to advise universities on what they should be doing. So I'm going to use some of my experiences in this area, on startups, on the startup ecosystem, and perhaps what universities have been doing to enable to contribute to the startup ecosystem. So I'm going to have my presentations. I realized if you are a good consultant, you should have a deck, a PowerPoint deck. So I'm not going to disappoint you. I'll have a PowerPoint deck. But the idea is not to bore you to death with PowerPoint slides. That's not the idea. I'm trying to illustrate certain points using PowerPoint slides. Certain things I might be going faster, slower, depending on what I wanted to convey. Feel free to stop me at any point of time. So the next maybe 45, 50 minutes, there are three parts that I'm going to speak. One is about the higher education landscape and how it is changing, right? You know that better than anyone else. You are a part of the higher education ecosystem. But you know what? It's always better to hear from someone who has a ringside view of things. I'm like, always somebody who is in the best interest of educational institution, still not inside the ecosystem. So please bear with me on my perspectives on why the higher education ecosystem is changing very briefly. And then I'm going to spend some time, and I thought that would be useful, on the startup ecosystem. What is the startup ecosystem? Why are we saying so much about it? Why is it important? Why is it relevant and other stuff? That's one part of it, which I thought could be useful for you. And then the third part of it is, and hence what can universities do to kind of contribute to this ecosystem and things like that. So, and I'm going to have, I plan to do all these things in about half an hour, 40 minutes, so that it gives some time for you to ask me any questions. And if at all I have any answers, I can share them with you. Now, right before I start, for 1 or 2 minutes, I would also like to see, and there is a chat box, which is very nice, if there are any specifics that you are looking from this, kind of expectations. I'm going to start in a minute, but you can keep typing there so that I can see it on the right-hand side of my screen. And I can kind of tailor make some of what I'm saying if I know exactly what you're looking for in this. So that will be very helpful if, the learned teachers, professors, academicians can type on the right-hand side, what is something that perhaps they are looking for, right? So that's how it is. So I'm going to start
if you permit, then we have a separate question answer session after you finish, or would you like to take on the questions in between?
Major, completely up to you. Just that I have a bad habit. When I start speaking, I don't even know what is happening outside. So I would be grateful if you can kind of ping me, tell me that, it's time that I need to. So the questions can be in between. Questions can be towards the end of it. I'm okay.
We will keep it in the end. For all you know, you may as such cover
some of those questions
that is being asked. So we will.
Yeah. Sure. I'll do that. Yeah, makes sense. So please start typing the questions on the chat box. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the chat box now. I'm going to start with a couple of my presentations, and then we can kind of take it forward from there, as they say, right? So my first presentation, I'm going to, can you see the presentation? I hope you can see the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, it's visible now.
It's visible. Okay. Okay. So that's the topic, right? I mean, we are talking about the growing culture of startups and the contributions of higher education institutions. What I'm going to do right now is to take up one portion of it, which is, okay, are the slides moving or am I not seeing it? Can you see the slides moving?
No. Yeah, it has now come up. It's now come up. Yeah.
Okay. I think there's a bit of a lag in this. That's fine. So, okay. India is now perhaps racing towards the largest education network, higher education network in the world. Right now, it might be ranking number 2. The way we are growing will easily be the largest, and that's eerie. And it's not without any reason, because never in the history of mankind has one single country had so many young learners. This is, unprecedented. Never ever before, no other country, not even China, had so many young learners. And hence it is only right that we have as many educational institutions. And of course, use all the educational institutions in the world. So we are saying that, and even by revenue terms, we are going to be one of the largest spenders in education ecosystem, right? The total number of students enrolled is going to be over 4.15 crores. It's already has crossed this, and it's a little dated because I wanted to be clear on the data. This is dated, and it's going to be more. The online education part, which is another big trend that came up during the pandemic and growing, has already been going at 20%, and that is also growing. But what is interesting is some of the anomalies, like the gender parity, number of women or girls are coming into education, more number of marginalized sections of the society are coming into it. But what does these things mean? These things mean that we are going to have more and more blend of people who are coming into the educational ecosystem. And there are certain changes that is also happening from a regulatory and other perspectives. Now, the pandemic was one of the reasons why we had what is normally called as the EdTech market growing. And many universities across India have started giving online degrees, right? The government has also taken many initiatives like SWAYAM. There is also a talk about National Digital University, which could be the world's largest open university. And as a part of it, teachers in India are also developing new pedagogical method, right? I also was curious to see the overall topic being andragogy, and we are talking about heterogogy and other things. The pedagogy is gone. Especially higher education institution, maybe it doesn't make sense to call it pedagogy, because pedagogy is like teaching to kids. And when it comes to higher education, there are no more kids. And heterogogy is something that I believe is better because it's not even talking to an adult, it is talking to a peer. So increasingly, we are seeing the learning curve getting sharper and sharper. It is rather preposterous to expect somebody who is a teacher to know everything, and they will teach somebody who is on the other side. So it's increasingly becoming a collaborative approach where the teacher is more a trigger for learning, and it is more learner-centric when it comes to these institutions. Especially with online, you are going to address a lot more students than ever before. And hence, new pedagogical methods for online teaching have come up. Assessment methodologies have been changing. AI, AML, ML, AR, VR, all of them are playing a big role in this. Then there is also a big change due to national education policy and some of the regulatory changes. We're talking about a multidisciplinary approach towards higher education. Once upon a time, IITs were the citadels of learning, and they were monodisciplinary. IITs, IIMs, and they did very well because they focused on one discipline. World over, it is clear that monodisciplinary institutions don't churn out professionals who are going to be leaders of that sort, right? And hence there is, correctly so, a shift towards even the IITs now are becoming multidisciplinary. Incidentally, each IIT is looking at more than one or two disciplines where they'll focus apart from technology, taking IIT as an example. And hence, to develop a more reliable, future-ready, employable workforce, we need a multidisciplinary approach and a flexible curriculum, right? We are talking about academic bank of credits, we are talking about a national credit framework, all these things to say it is learner-centric. The learner decides when and where she is going to learn, and the teacher is just a part of the journey. The educational institution is just a part of the journey, right? And also, more than specific learning, we are moving towards enabling structures which will make you a better learner than the one who's learned in a particular topic, like critical thinking skills, emotional quotient, approaching the real world with these problems, being flexible, unlearning and learning, and all the rest of it. And the national education policy says that by 2040, every single institution that calls itself a university should be multidisciplinary, right? Amity has obviously already started courses on many fronts, and it is one of those leading institutions which have already embarked on this journey of being a multidisciplinary approach. So there's nothing new for you in that sense. The other change that is happening is increasingly we are saying universities cannot live in isolation, right? I mean, once upon a time, they could afford to be in their ivory towers, right? And everybody else approached no more. So we are talking about how do we make sure that we have occasional education or an industry-led education or employment-oriented education happening in the universities, right? We already see India being a source for the workforce across the globe. There is a significant difference between how India was viewed in the previous century, in the beginning of the century, to what is happening right now. A study says by 2030, 1/3 of the world's working age population will be from India. India has an additional responsibility to be the supplier of workforce for the globe. And look at it the other way, we have everything to gain. Right? Now we're racing to be the #3 economy in the world. It can be even bigger if the remittances, if the people in India go out and start being useful for the industry and the civil society across the world. Some of the statistics where you see many countries, particularly the European, North American, and the Far Eastern countries are getting geriatric. They're getting older and they need support from younger people who's going to come from India, right? And hence, we see many of them looking at how can I be useful there directly rather than doing a research and getting into certain areas which are far away from what is required on the ground, right? NEP also says, incidentally, that vocational education and skill-based education should be blended, right? And we are also talking about a lot of new initiatives like Skills University, like Karma that I have put in one of those points there. And there are many, many institutions, what Indian Institute of Skills by the Tata. There are many such initiatives where seeing we will change the industry landscape, the university landscape to have a holistic education that also has skill-based and vocational training. And the teaching methodologies are also going to change because we are going to adopt a very unified approach towards this. The other point that is also getting increasingly relevant is how do we bring in industry to the center of learning, right? It's not as if industry is away. Industry has always been a participant. Many times industry comes towards the end of the learning cycle, more for a placement or for internship, sometimes to do some bit of consulting. Maybe they outsource some research sometime, but it is time learning process, right? In order to make these education to be relevant, employable, and otherwise. And when I say employable, it need not only be industry. It could be the civil society. It could be the government. It could be various other, but it could be the social part of it. Are we relevant to what is happening in the market? So towards that, we are talking about many of these things happening, and this has already started to happen as well. But the most important trend that is happening, and that's perhaps the context for today, is if India needs to be the third largest economy and beyond that, we need to be job creators and not job seekers. How is university playing a role in making sure the young minds who join universities are job creators? They look at developing entrepreneurship skills. They look at actually looking at opportunities outside rather than piggybacking on somebody else who has started something, right? Government has done its job. There is a lot of innovation centers, incubation centers that have started happening. And there are various institutions that are oriented towards only entrepreneurship and skill development, particularly in terms of creating new MSMEs, otherwise that have happened. Universities are undergoing a shift in the pedagogical tools that will also enhance education by adopting, by having hands-on experience, by mentoring, by supporting, and all the rest of it. In that context, we see a lot of trends that is happening in industry that is going to be relevant for us to know why the student should be there. I'm going to have a separate presentation only on the startup ecosystem. I'm going to rely on another organization that has created that. With due courtesies, I'll go into the presentation and speak about that. But before that, very quickly, technological advancements which are threatening to change the very nature of the jobs that are emerging is one. Globalization, like I said, and globalization is not just the nature of work, but also a lot of things to do with culture, with emotional stability, immigration, and a whole bunch of stuff associated with it. Gig economy is there. I mean, increasingly, you will see your students today, definitely students in the coming years, not interested in a single job, not interested in one sector or one role. Maybe they are the endowed, liberated generation which says, I don't want to stick to a job for long and I have one life and let me do many things that are possible. And these words like moonlighting and all will go and people will be, I mean, we see that in KPMG. There are many who come and ask us, but why the hell should I be tied to one firm for a long time? You want 8 hours of my life every day, right? Take it. And the rest of it, you don't bother. So gig economy is happening. And India could be a booming platform for this kind of gig workers who will go across the globe. So that's one big thing. India particularly is looking at taking manufacturing in a big way. We are talking about electronics. So this could be the trends when it comes to the startup ecosystem as well. Now what I'm going to do is, with your permission, I'm going to switch to another presentation which is going to speak more about only the startup ecosystem. This is the second part of the presentation, like I just said, okay? I'm doing quite badly on time. Let me try and catch up on it.
Sir, don't worry about the time, sir. We want to hear you.
Okay, so while this takes a little bit of time, oh, nice of you. Let me see if you say the same thing after some time, but thank you so much for that. See, the following slides are courtesy this organization, inc42.com. I'm liberally using their slides with of course, due courtesy and permissions, because that kind of conveyed it very well. So I thought, why reinvent the wheel? So I'll make it really quick. This is the report that is there in the public domain. So all of you who want these statistics and details and other things, absolutely don't worry. I'll send you the link for this. It's a free report, downloadable, available in the system. So if I rush, don't even worry about this. My idea is to illustrate a point as to why it is important to know about the startup ecosystem. India, many of you could be surprised. We are the third largest ecosystem in the world. And that's a big achievement that has happened in the past 5 to 7 years. There are 57,000 Indian startups that have been launched till date. And more than, this is a little dated data, 6 to 9 months dated one. I'm afraid actually the pace has come down a little bit. Actually, in 2023, the pace has come down a little bit compared to what it was before, but that doesn't mean it has slowed down. Just the velocity has come down. The acceleration has come down. The speed and velocity remains the same. So $130 odd billion that has been raised only by startups. There are 99.3 thousand investors who have participated in this. The valuation is amazing. And later I'm going to talk about the unicorns and soonicorns. But the combined valuation of Indian startups as of that date, is about 9 or 10 months before, is $450 whooping billion. And there are many M&As, as you could know, and there are many internet-based companies. More than 100 unicorns only from India. These are all things that say why we are big. And if you compare with the other two, then number 1 and number 2 in the world, which is US and China, we're not bad, but we are nowhere close to that. The only thing that is looking good is we are growing at a much faster rate. And hopefully this is going to help us a lot. If you look at, this is how we have grown. Look at it from just 3,000 or less than that in the 2000s. At 2005, we were about 3,500. And then zoom to more than 60,000 as on date, right? And there are some states who are taking a lead. Just to give you an idea, thanks only to Bengaluru, Karnataka seems to have walked with the best when it comes to the number of startups and more than number of startups, the value of startups. The NCR region, followed by Mumbai, Pune-led Maharashtra, and Chennai-led Tamil Nadu, Hyderabad-led Telangana seems to be the leaders. And there are others who follow, but this is just to give it's across. It's not as if it is happening in only 1 or 2 cities. It's not the Silicon Valley phenomena in US or the Taiwan Hsinchu Science Park in China. It is happening across India. Of course, some states are taking a lead on this one. And in terms of unicorns, we raised up to become again number 3 in the world. right? 71% of the new unicorn counts came from India. Not so surprisingly, the past maybe 6 to 7 years have contributed to this phenomenal growth. 2 years of pandemic-related downturn notwithstanding, or the lockdown and other things notwithstanding. We've zoomed past even Israel. To me personally, that's a big surprise. I thought Israel was the place for unicorns. Of course, the density and other things are a question mark, but still. But having said that, we are far away from the land that gives us new opportunities, which is US. Maybe we will overtake China soon, but US is a long way to catch up. And it's not in one region or one sector or one set of people or from one university or something. We have quite a number. If I fill this sheet, it will go on, and you can perhaps identify with some of the names that you see there. And some of them may be new to you, but I can tell you as we speak, more and more startups are coming up, and these are doing, increasingly, many of them are doing well, right? So what does this mean? There is a lot of money. I mean, we are talking about this because we are talking about employment, we are talking about generating revenue, we are talking about boosting the economy. What better way to do than start an organization that is going to create new value in the space, right? So if you look at this, just the funding, many of them from abroad, dollar flow has increased thanks to some of the unicorns and others. 2021 saw a big jump. 2022 continued. In 23, we see a dip. Those data are not there in this, but I can tell you in 23, I've seen a bit of a dip. 22 has also zoomed past. And if you look at the sectors, I'm going to talk a little bit about the sectors because that's going to be relevant for you when you talk about the startup ecosystem. There are certain sectors that are doing big, right? Tech, anything to do with enterprise tech, e-commerce, fintech, health tech, ed tech, media-led technology are all doing well. And it's not as if it is only that. There are other sectors like sports, like logistics, and others also play a big role in the unicorn numbers, or sorry, in the startup numbers. But when it comes to funding, this slide is more on the funding. Maybe the funding levels are more in some of these companies. If you look at the startup hubs in India, like I said, Bengaluru and the NCR region, followed by Mumbai, do the bulk of the running. But this is again changing. In the past 2 years, we see Chennai and Hyderabad and Pune catching up. So we are looking at a holistic kind of development there. Of course, there are some states to catch up. If you look at the sector-wise or, in terms of where is the difference or where are these people coming in, it could be some big names like the Baijus, the Paytms, the Olas of the world. Look at all of them are in different sectors. It's not as if there is the Silicon Valley is all about tech-enabled thing happening only in high tech and things of that kind. But we see a more broad-based growth that is happening in the Indian. So what does that mean? It means that there is scope for anybody with an innovative idea and who can commercialize that. There is a space to grow, and there are enough and more people who have shown the path for them to grow. If you look at very quickly, and I'm going to do this real quick because you will have this and I don't want to get caught in the details of a sector-based stuff. Fintech is one of my favorites. We have made a significant difference in the fintech area. There is an enablement by government. The UPI system is a big gift, which is free, of course. No other country has this. You have a platform that is given free, and there are many startups that have come back on that, like, some of these things. So fintech, in my view, is big. And if you look at this, the new banks, as a service, fintech as a service, investment in the technology area, what's called as insurtech, payments, peer-to-peer lending, these are all the areas that we see big time growth happening. So what do we see as trends in this? We believe there could be more consolidations, and from top line growth, it could move to profitability. Regulations will become binding. Initially, there will be a bit of a free run, then regulations will be binding. Technology is playing a huge role, which you could see in each of these sectors, and hence we need to see how it happens. Last but not the least, personalization has been the mantra for success in this. With younger audience, I usually ask this question, and invariably I get the answer which I wanted. I ask them, do you know what is the branch of a bank? right? Trust me, people who are 20 years and younger in the crowd don't even know what is the branch of a bank, and they've never been to something called the branch of a bank, which is very surprising because I grew up in an era where, the branch manager was an integral part of the society, and he or she was playing a huge role in our growth, and they didn't know what is it. So that's the level of change that is happening due to fintech. Second area is health tech. Health tech has grown thanks to pandemic. It is zoomed past, and we see a lot of growth happening here. This is happening both on the healthcare side and on the pharma side. You will see a lot of growth happening in the pharmacy bit, online pharma, which has taken a bit of a dent in 2023. Telemedicine, fitness, wellness. I mean, I need not names. You will go down the street, you will see fitness, wellness all over. Again, thanks to pandemic. And medtech. There is a lot even learning in the healthcare space that has grown big. There are a lot of startups waiting to be unicorns in the medical learning space, healthcare learning space as well. What are the trends here? I think hybrid models will be in focus going forward. It will not be just the online space, which was very big during the COVID times. And thanks to, again, what happened there, diagnostics will be the key. Online diagnostics, telemedicine, health records being stored, networking of this will be big. And as we kind of, movements increase, this will be big. AI, artificial intelligence led things is going to gain. The real effect of artificial intelligence, I have nothing against the chat GPTs of the world, but the real power of AI is going to be seen in sectors like healthcare. And also it's not just all on the tech space, healthcare infrastructure development is going to see a big growth, and these startups will continue to grow. Consumer services, particularly the likes of, the Flipkart, Amazon, to even specialized services like, food tech, quick commerce, hyperlocal, and all those things are going to grow. And we are going to see in these areas, electronics, fashion, furniture, beauty, food and beverage to be the ones to grow. And trends here would be like, funding slowdown might happen, but customer experience will determine who will get the funding. And diversification of services, where you go from, you start with one, vertical, and then you move across because you got the platform right, is going to be key. And you are going to see more and more Indians getting onto this one. EdTech is an area of growth. We have seen the boom and bust. Byju's was the darling of the investors for many, many years. The recent, whatever, notwithstanding. But then we're going to see growth. The test prep, as they call, continues to be a very big market. And till such time we don't have enough educational institutions, I guess test prep market will grow. But along that is going to be the enterprise part of learning, online certifications, K-12 tutorial learning, as well as some other skill development related stuff. We recently saw the emergence of skill tech varsities coming in. So these are all the ones that are going to see opportunities in future. Some of the areas where we see EdTech growing is in the hybrid model, moving away from just online to just being brick and mortar. We see this consolidations are going to happen. There is a pre-post debate that is going on. I'm not going to be caught in this, but whatever it is, there is a big growth and it will continue to grow. I mean, this is another of my favorite questions. Who remembers movie theaters, which is rapidly vanishing kind of stuff, with OTTs have come, and then digital publishing, social media, gaming, huge markets and all these things. So media and entertainment is going to be one of those, the dark horse, which is going to take the center stage. And I think increased opportunity with digital penetration. We are one of the largest internet penetrated countries in the world now. With 5G and 6G coming in, the video streaming and video interface is going to gain a lot. And there are a lot of startups that are going to come back on this. These are areas that we don't even experience today, right? So new models of engaging with the customer, influenced by the instant gratifications and other things of the next generation, media and entertainment, and the associated one is going to be a huge opportunity for those. Deep tech is another area. Deep tech is, the enabling technologies like the robotics, like artificial intelligence, like AR, VR, like the drones, blockchain, all those things. So enabling technologies for this big market, because they are going to be the background or the platform on which others are going to. AI and IoT are the favorites. And we are also looking at a huge skilling market. Universities, this could be relevant. There's going to be a whole lot of changes in the skill sets that are required. And this deep tech is going to play a big role. We already see in many of the engineering institutions, like the erstwhile computer science and related areas taking a lion's share of number of students and other things. So this trend is going to continue. Agri-tech quickly is another areas. It started with agri-finance and aggregation and related areas, but soon it's moving to precision agriculture and things like farm management inputs and farm processing and related areas. ONDC might still help, while it is still in the pilot phase. I think it's going to make a big difference to us as farmers. And increased integration, that, like they say, some from farm to fork, that's going to take a lot of mind space in people who are going to be in the agri area. Funding in agri-tech will continue. Logistics is another area which is slightly outside technology, but it has a huge tech influence in that as well. Integrated logistics, you might have heard words like 3P, 4P, and all those things. All those things are going to come in. Market aggregators are going to be there. Solutions, particularly software solutions, will play a role in this. Experiments will continue on drone and related areas. Autonomous vehicles, last mile will be a big thing. Logistics, particularly for other e-businesses, is going to be big. Reverse logistics, where we look at two-way logistics and making sure with the information arbitrage, this becoming big, is one other area that we see. Now, all these are there in the reports. I'm not going to spend time. And I also quickly get into the Sunicons or soon to be unicorns. And we are looking at both unicorns and Sunicons playing a big role. What is their impact? They have started generating a lot of employment. There are more than 6 lakh jobs that are created by them, and their combined valuation is close to 400 billion. And with these acquisitions and investments that are happening, the unicorns and Sunicons are going to attract a whole lot of investments. Just to give you an idea, these are the current set of unicorns, a big club, a recent club. Why are students attracted to it? Imagine 6-7 years before, we are nowhere in the unicorn club, and we are number 3 today. Very silently, India has moved up big, and no better than our youngsters to know about these things. Mensa, for example, that you see has become a club of clubs. They are the fastest unicorn in the world. Within 6 months, they became unicorn. Unicorn, incidentally, is to hit $1 billion in valuation. And how did Mensa do? Mensa kind of started consulting with unicorns or people who want to become unicorn. And in the process, they became the fastest unicorn in the world. So there are many such interesting things that are emerging here. So my idea is, before I exit this presentation and go back, to tell you why this is important. Why is it that universities need to look at this? And it's not as if universities, a lot of established players. I've just taken 2 examples that Inc. 42 had done. There are more examples. Established players have started investing in this. So it's not as if you want to join Reliance, it's only Reliance Industries or Geo, but a whole lot of other things, right? And similarly, the Tatas. They have a Tata universe of many such unicorns and other things that have come. I'll stop here. My idea is to say that there is a lot happening here. And that is the reason why we as educational institutions should start focusing on building an ecosystem, building an enabling structure for this. I'm going to take a pause here before I go to the third part of my presentation, sir. I'm also trying to read the chat box things. Do you think NEP 2020 will be helpful in boosting the quality of higher education and bring our students at par with the industry? Furthermore, how do you think HA is developed? Okay, lovely. This question is fantastic, Dr. Monica Yadav. Thank you so much. I believe NEP 2020 has been one of the most disruptive policies by the government, and it is clearly looking at future and how in future we can do. Yes, it will help in developing teaching learning methodologies, but I think educational institutions need to genuinely embrace the thought behind NEP. NEP is at the end of the day just a policy. It's just giving an outline, a framework, a direction to do. Different institutions might do it in their own way, but the direction seems to be very good. What are views on law tech becoming a part of the startup? Okay, so this is another big area that is coming in. The number of my lawyer friends who are scared of ChatGPT is not a joke. Whatever they were doing, they were taking many days and weeks, is happening in hours, right? And I see more and more firms now embracing particularly artificial intelligence. It's happening in other areas as well, particularly artificial intelligence, to look at how they can be a lot more efficient in the law tech space, right? And I, in fact, have stopped calling it with the tech thing, because the whole thing is looking only that, like, banking. Without technology, is there any banking today? I mean, banks look like disguised IT companies actually. And soon it's going to be with entertainment. Soon it's going to be with educational institutions. So law tech or law is going to be, can entrepreneurship be taught? Wonderful question. I have my own views on this. Okay, now that I've read this, I say, see, I think the entrepreneurial spirit can be kindled. Can it be taught? I don't know. Many educational institutions have courses on entrepreneurship. What does that mean? It just highlights what that world has in store for students. Can you really make somebody an entrepreneur, and more importantly, make him or her successful? I don't know. But what definitely can I get inspired a lot by the institution in which I study. I get inspired a lot by the people with whom I'm studying, by the teachers who taught me. So while there is a space for an entrepreneurship course, I think the whole institution turning towards building entrepreneurship makes a difference. So if you ask me, entrepreneurship can be taught, but not necessarily only as a 2-credit, 3-credit courses. That just does one part of the story. Entrepreneurship is taught in the way you treat students, in the way you evaluate them, in the way you recruit them, in the way you teach the pedagogy and other things. So I think, in my view, entrepreneurship can be taught in that sense, and educational institutions play a huge role in shaping young minds towards being an entrepreneur rather than go on. See, there's a generational shift, right? I still remember, like incidentally, I'm 20 years in KPMG, which is not easy. And many of my junior folks, the first thing they say is, what is wrong with you? Why are you been there in an organization for so long? My previous generation was even worse. And there were 40 years, 50 years, and they were not even thinking of moving away from one employment, because those were times of scarcity where if you get an employment, you don't leave that. You want to be employed for life. We are moving away clearly from that. So unless we create something, you're not successful. Earlier, if you're successful, if you find a great job, right? And during my times, if you were successful when you got to one of those, big jobs. It could be investment banking or consulting and other things. Today, you're successful if you are an entrepreneur and you succeed. You are not called a successful one if you are going to, like what I'm doing, working with somebody for ages. So there is a generational shift, and I think educational institutions should help them do that. What sectors? I just spoke some of them. I hope it was useful, Dr. Vijaypal Singh. Thanks, Koshi Ratan, for that wonderful question. So I'm going to, with your permission, sir, I know there could be other questions in the limited time that is left. Very quickly, I'll skip the portion. Okay, maybe I'll speak about that and I'll switch to another presentation that I have. I think you need to look at the entire, what I call as the value chain when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? When I say value chain, it starts with recruitment. Are you recruiting the right set of people? You have a lot of entrance examinations, and these entrance examinations test them on their physics, chemistry, commerce, English, and other skills. I have not seen something that actually gives a test for their entrepreneurial skills. I think we need to start engaging, and in my view, this should start at the pre-university schools. How do you define them? How do you literally entice them to get into the space, and you kind of recruit the right set of students? It starts from there. And the curriculum, in my view, should be fine-tuned for entrepreneurship. if you have a lot of 3-credit courses and 4-credit courses, which are going to be theory, you don't have time for entrepreneurial thinking at all. So leveraging on many of the online self-learning courses, in my view, you should get into a curriculum that gives you enough space, enough time for experimentation, which is not there in my view now. Pedagogy, pedagogy, whatever you call that, should change in a big way. Today, the approach is, I know what needs to be learned. I will decide 40 minutes in the classroom is when you will learn it. And then the 1 hour later, or 3 hours, when I test you, is when you will be decided whether you learned that or not. You're far away from that. The method of teaching, the method of assessment, why can't the method of assessment be, I have taught you so many things on internal combustion engine, right? I'll give you next 2 months. Can you design a small engine for you using this lab? We don't do it that way at all. So I think wherever it could be in law, for example, which is, I guess I'm addressing a lot of people in law. Law could be, now come up with something as a case study, simulate a situation that has happened and argue in this format or whatever, come up with the explanation why it happens rather than get into the theoretical aspects of it, or simulated environments, real life environments. These are all the things that are going to work, right? And then you move on to, like I said, the assessment part itself is different. Even certification. Gone are those days where we are looking at degree programs, postgraduate programs. Increasingly, people don't even want that. How do we make sure that there is continuous learning and a continuous value addition for those who want to be in the entrepreneur? So normally entrepreneurs initially don't want fancy degrees. At some point of time, they want to come back and learn. At that point of time, they say, you're not qualified. Now, we need to change the way we think. Like, if somebody has learned a few and dropped out, now there's multiple entry, exit, and banking of credits and other things. That's where NEP comes in a big way. And we should ensure that the entrepreneurs have continuous learning in that. And finally, let's not relegate industry for placements and internships. How do we make sure that industry comes right in the beginning of defining a curriculum, right in the beginning of defining what's the kind of space we need to give students? Let them participate in this. That is when they become really entrepreneurial. Even if they join an organization, if they are entrepreneurial, as they say, that makes a big difference. And that's a big role that education institutions can play. Having said that, I'm also going to now present on certain universities that have done a very good job of creating a smart university or a smart campus in which such kind of entrepreneurial learning, entrepreneurship has come out, right? So my next presentation is going to be case studies of some of those institutions who have, effectively transformed that into a big entrepreneurial hub of sorts, right? So with your permission, sir, I'm going to get into the third one. See, I just imagine, how does it going? How is our so-called smart university going to look like, right? It will not be the regular university. It could have many things. It could be like, can you see this? Not yet, is it?
Yeah.
So
yeah, we can see
it could be something like this. Don't take it exactly. This is almost my imagination of how things will be like. There should be a commercial business zone where things will happen. There will be an incubation, acceleration zone, and there will be laboratories that actually are places where these innovations happen. Of course, there will be an academic zone and residential area and other things, including lifestyle and other things that are happening. Now, my idea is, can the university be part of a live workplace environment, a future-ready professional skill development deployment, teach what are relevant in future, including the entrepreneurship, startup ecosystem, what is pre-incubation, what is post-incubation, what are the zones in which you can operate, how do you commercialize your idea, right? We are not very good in terms of commercialization of innovation. We do innovation well, we publish a paper, we get a few citations, and we are very thrilled. That doesn't stop there. In fact, I forgot one of the key ingredients when I talked about the ecosystem is the academicians. The teachers also getting entrepreneurial. Many students are inspired when the teacher actually works with them to co-create. Are we doing that? We somehow think innovation should be with the students. Innovation should happen in those labs. Innovation should happen in those innovation, accelerators and incubators. Why is innovation not happening in us, the academicians? Why are we not thinking like an entrepreneur? Why are we not participating in co-creating with the students some innovative idea? Wherever it has worked, and there are many university examples, many teachers, the risk of, taking out a name, look at somebody like Dr. Junjunwala of IIT Madras. He's like a best entrepreneur I can think of, who's also a faculty, and it has commercially worked in his favor, but his institution has spawned a lot of entrepreneurs because the professor, the teacher was entrepreneurial in his or her outlook, right? So I think university should have a diverse mix, should have a good talent pool, technology-enabled structure, and these incubation centers, but it also had a mindset of doing that, right? University can decide on what to do that. I mean, each university should nudge, in my view, students towards something. It could be, and these are all, don't even take this as a given. I'm just giving some. It could be low income housing. It could be something to do with stem cell therapy, natural language processing. There are so many areas in which innovation are happening. Universities can take a call that my labs, my teachers, my students will be focused on this, and soon you'll start seeing results. So the key enablers, in my view, is it starts with the governance structure, the right kind of funding. In many of the successful ones that I'm going to show, the promoter of the university or the government, whatever may the case, is one of the funders. They actually put in money to say, like they say, put money where the mouth is, and say that I encourage innovation. Faculty, very important. Commercialization of research, the culture within students, building a futuristic infrastructure, participation of industry, and have a clear focus on the professional skill development along with the theory and academic development, right? Like I said, I have two. I'm in the interest of time, I'm jumping into the case studies. First case study I have is the IIT Madras Research Park. Long back, IIT Madras decided that we need to set up an ecosystem. The good part of this is set up outside the IIT campus. The money that they have raised is not the government of India money. They raised it from the market, created this ecosystem. Today, they have a large space, 4 big towers where this happens, and it's very difficult for anybody to get into this one. There's a long waiting queue for somebody to get into IIT Madras. Even for the students and alumnus of IIT Madras, it's very difficult. Incidentally, it is open for others as well. So what did they do, right? It started, and it's not easy, right? It took a lot of time for them in the 2002 to 2010 phase. I think it was very sluggish, but it kind of accelerated from the 2010, 12, 13 area. And by the time 2021, 22, they are a full-blown center. It all started with 500 crores being invested in a research park, which is like an initial funding. And with some little government grant funds and then some borrowings started. They went to CSR and other things. What did they do? There was an R&D center that was set up in the university only for students and alumni and others who will use the center. There was an incubator that was set up, which gave mentorship, funding, legal advice, technology advice, accounting advice, and all the rest of it. There are 6 centers of excellence for different areas. If you are somebody who want to do, say, gene stem cell therapy, there is a center of excellence. I'm making it up. That's not one in IIT Madras, but similar things are happening. Facilities for conducting events such as auditorium, amphitheaters, exhibition centers, all these things are important. And what did that do? For IIT, we have consultancy services that the university can offer, sponsorships and technical events that the university offers. And in terms of, board of directors, they got somebody from the university as well as people outside. There was a management team that is outside. IIT Madras Research Park partnered with more than, now it's close to 100 companies for their R&D activities. Unlike the IIT Madras, they had the, permission and freedom to join hands with anybody. For example, the Saint-Gobain Research India had taken 21 projects. Only one organization did 21 projects, And they launched 20 new products that came out of IIT Madras Research Park. So it's not just, when I say entrepreneurship, it need not be this one or two students coming in, starting an MSME kind of entrepreneurship is all over. Like I said, the Reliance and the Tatas are actively contributing to entrepreneurship and startups. So this is just an example, right? One other very, very long-standing one, the University of Illinois Research Park. This actually incidentally started after IIT Madras even thought of, but grew much faster. They got into a developer partnership with Fox, Atkins Development Research, and that led to an accelerated growth, right? And the land for lease model that they have, where they didn't put in money, they got in somebody with learnings for universities such as Amity to look at. It's not as if you need a huge set of money for doing this. Both cases, they used, the funding that is available outside. They did have Corporate Innovation Center and something called Enterprise Works, which is the incubator that they had. And they also had the convention centers and other things. They went one step ahead. It being USA, they had a large hotel-like concept for this, which kind of helped investors, collaborators, other universities, to come there and start working on this. Now, similarly, they had a board which had somebody from the university from outside. And today, they have conducted more than 200 entrepreneurial related events, and 250 startups have engaged with them. And they have, generated, just to give you an idea, close to 10 million in annual tax revenues for the state of Illinois, for which state of Illinois started putting a lot of money in this. This is the one in Saudi Arabia. I mean, closer home. They've just about started, but very keen on putting this. They're hiring talent right now. They are licensing some of their technologies. There is a new technology management process that has come in. Commercialization of their research has started to happen. And they are very keen in developing and mentoring entrepreneurs, also registering their patent and other stuff. So let me pause there. I know I kind of almost hit the time that was given to me. So it's 12 o'clock. Let me pause, and while I invite questions, I'll go back to my original presentation and await any other questions that come to me.
There are a few in the chat box. Would you like the Dr. Ankita to read them out to you, sir?
Sure, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the first question is from Dr. Monica Yadav. Do you think NEP 2020 will be helpful in boosting the quality of higher education and bring our students at par with the industry expectations from the future workforce? Furthermore, how do the HEIs develop their teaching learning methodologies to fulfill these expectations?
Wonderful. I partly answered this question. To me, NEP has been in the right direction. The many things that NEP says has to be followed, has to be interpreted and implemented. So many people look up to NEP and say, oh, that is not there. How do I do? NEP is a policy document. So in my view, the direction is clear, and it will definitely push us towards a more entrepreneurial kind of a structure. What's the last question that you asked? What's the add-on question that you asked? You are on mute, Ankita.
Ankita, you're on mute. I will complete my question.
How do the HIs develop their teaching learning methodologies to?
Okay. Now this is the toughest part, right? Over a period of time, we have never put our thoughts in this direction of creating new teaching learning methodologies. We've inherited what it is, improvised it here, there, contextualized to some extent, but we've never thought of redrawing the landscape and looking at it. In my view, you need a complete rehaul of the teaching learning process, right? In my view, I think the classroom is a bad concept. Classroom, 100% of the time, from there it should change, right? We talked about flipped classroom and other stuff, but that notwithstanding, how do we make universities truly centers of learning, not centers of teaching? To that extent, we need to make sure that the teaching learning process, it should be driven by students. If they are hungry, they'll come. And why will I spoon feed them? I will just give them direction. Let them go learn. I will use that space to improve where all I can guide them, rather than spend all the time in creating everything. Even today, I see universities creating notes, giving it to students as if they are studying in K-12 schools, and that's not really helping them. That might help them initially. In the process, the teachers also suffer. They do a lot of work. And my point is, you be guides, you be mentors, you be edupreneurs, and let their children flourish and become entrepreneurs.
So there is a related question. So I'm going to jump in and ask that. Dr. Mukherjee is asking in the same line with the new education policy. So he's asking that, do you think the NEP will be helpful in reducing the difference between rural India and urban India in terms of imparting quality education? And will it not give birth to existence crisis of many higher education institutes in our country?
Good question. I think technology has helped a lot in bridging the rural-urban divide. NEP does talk about equity and access. It gives a lot of emphasis on equity and access. And to that extent, directionally, NEP talks about how do we bring but more importantly, like for example, there is a talk of National Digital University being launched soon. But that is a game changer. If you have your courses being offered in NDU, and anybody in any corner of the world of India can take the course and can have access to the best of teachers, that makes a big difference. So yes, it will make a difference, but it is piggybacking a lot on technology. So technology is the one that will truly enable, something like NEP to make it happen. Well, I like the second part of what you asked. I think Mr. Mukherjee asked, right?
Yes, sir. Will it not give birth to existence crisis of many higher education institutes in our country?
So don't we need that? Don't we need the competitive spirit? Now, I think we are moving to a stage where what is NIRF did? What has any other this thing? It's now said, I mean, yes, in some sense, it is existential crisis, also, especially for new universities. It's always difficult to be a new university. I have a number of my clients who thought it is very good and very noble to start a university, and they started the university, and then they didn't know why they got into. Running a university is no joke. So by itself, university is not going to be easy. But with certain things so rapidly changing in the university ecosystem and things even more rapidly changing in the external world, it is not at all easy to run a university. And to that extent, I think we need to look at different skill sets coming into the university. You need people with financing backgrounds, you need good administrators. More importantly, you need a lot of people who understand technology. Gone are those days where university is all about teachers and administrators. So yes, there is a crisis coming up, and in my view, that is good.
So, sir, basically, we talk about this opening up of the education, and we are going with the NEP, and we are looking at EdTech. But, there's one problem that I personally feel that is there is the branding, where the students are now looking for jobs, but the industry looks at where you have come from. Isn't that in itself a breaker of all the policy changes that we are bringing? If the place I have to actually ultimately be in is not accepting me at the same level as, let's say, IIT Delhi. Yes, of course. Oh, IIT Delhi, all right. You have already crossed two stages of the interview. But another student who might be really intelligent, but maybe because of, whatever issues, could not reach there. And we are going into opening up the environment, and we're talking about credit transfers, we're talking about online education. They find it very difficult. Today, so many times when you look at it, you look at people with PhDs looking for jobs as peons, right? And so how do we balance that divide?
See, it is correct, and that brand plays a role. But in my view, that is reality of the situation. Why do brands play a role? Look at it from those who have built these brands, right? Amity is a great brand. Don't you want the Amity brand to play a role? Because you earned it the hard way. It's not easy for somebody to place confidence on a particular name. Today, when you say it is Amity University, people place that confidence because you earned it. So, but what the flip side of it is, if Amity stops innovating, then it will get deteriorated. So a branding will only take you to the table. And to excel there means that you need to have really good content, right? And good throughput, output, and other things. But the point that you made, is this going to stop? See, if you look at, like you said, people who do PhDs and PGs who are not up to the mark, right? Frankly, is it because of the brand, or is it because of what they teach in these universities? We don't have the brand. What does brand do? Brand ensures that you are nimble-footed and you are constantly trying to keep up to the promise that you made to the brand, right? So if you are an IIT, then you are scared to do anything that will dilute the name of the IIT brand, and hence you try and give the best. If you are an ISB, which competed with the mighty IIMs, they wanted to invest on ISB, the brand, which is like some 20 odd years old, and today it's a brand name to reckon with. Or take institutions that are not even universities, like for example, Great Lakes.
Right.
People trust that beyond that, not because they built a brand, but because of over a period of time, what they toil to make the brand great. So those places where we are not getting good output are places where they didn't aspire to build a good brand. So I would use the brand as a synonym for the effort that is made by the university, and not some magic that was created, and they have been using it.
Okay,
So-
sir. We have our next question from Dr. Archana Sehrawat. The question is, what are your views on law tech becoming the part of the startups in India?
Logistics is what you said,
Law
sorry?
tech.
Law tech. I
Law tech.
think
Yeah. I answered that question.
Dr. Archana, Ankita sir has actually answered the first few questions, while we were doing. I think we should come to again, I think it's my question again,
Your question.
which is talking about the incubators that are being developed by HIEs. Do they really provide the ecosystem that is required by young innovators?
Absolutely, they do. They definitely do. I've been a big proponent of it in some of the universities that I was associated. This has been one of the big differentiators that I kind of recommend. I'll take names for illustration, not to whatever, when we worked with PDPU and we created the PDEU, as it is called now, Innovation Center, we have more than 60 commercial ideas that are coming. That happened because there was an ecosystem that was set up, and the objective of that one was to create ideas. Monetization of research happened. So in my view, unless you have a focus on something called an incubator, right, where I have a bright idea, somebody needs to guide the person, the youngster who's having that idea. It could be the faculty, for all you know, it could be an alumni, it could be anybody outside, but they come to the incubator and they are asked the right set of questions. Once they reach a particular stage, they say, okay, let me put you on to somebody who can tell you where to get funding for it. Let me put on to somebody who will give you the forward market linkages for this. Let me put on to somebody who will tell you what are the compliance related areas that you should do. This person is not going to get if you don't have that enabling ecosystem. And in my view, why is sports flourishing in universities? Because universities have the maximum number of young people, and hence innovation and entrepreneurship will flourish in universities because you have the maximum number of young people qualified to be entrepreneurs. Hence, it makes a lot of sense, and I would urge that every university should actually have an incubator that will also act as an accelerator later.
So, yes, I think I'm very proud to say that Amity Incubator is amongst one of the most upcoming ones that we have with us.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the next question is from Mr. Maruf Ansari. His question is, in what ways HEIs can address the problem of funding for students having good entrepreneur skills wanted to launch a startup?
Okay, so in this case, the HEIs will also attract investors. Look at it from the investors' perspective. I spoke about billions of dollars being invested in startup ecosystem. Trust me, they are constantly in search of good places to invest, good ideas to invest, good startups to invest. All HEIs need to do is just tap into them. right? In the process, if the promoters of these institutions also invest some money, like Government of India did, like Amity did, like Jain University did, like PDU did, that's great. You are also participating in a revolution that is happening, but you don't even need to have your money. You have a bunch of people who are ready to invest. You need to guide them, get them to your place, show them that the results and the success rate is high if they kind of invest in this incubator in that this higher education institution has. And it has been proven that all the successful incubators, there are a set of people who are ready to invest. Right? If you take IIT Madras Research Park, there are enough number of investors who are willing to come in. It is the research park and the higher education institution that says, wait, I'll tell you how much to invest.
So thank you. The last question is from Dr. Monica Yadav again. Will collaboration between multiple startups produce better results vis-a-vis their success rates?
Absolutely correct. In fact, that is one of the points. I'm glad you brought this out, ma'am. Even education institutions are not necessarily competing with each other, right? I mean, you collaborate, you get better results. You do a research paper together, you get better ideas. Similarly, you do a course together, the best of both the institutions come up. 100% if both incubators come together. There are many such. So I'm doing something in electronic vehicle manufacturing, right? And I'm talking about how do you kind of leverage the autonomous part of it. And here is somebody coming up with a battery that is going to last beyond. Now I collaborate, I give better results to the investor, I give better result to the vehicle that I'm producing. And then there is a third person who comes and says, like, how do you do minimalistic design, which the other two have not thought of. They combine and now they give even better product to go. So combining ideas within the incubator, combining the thought process across incubators makes a lot of sense. Now, higher education institutions have a role in enabling this again, right? Like, for example, can you conduct an event where you call other incubators to come and present? Can you encourage somebody who works jointly with other incubators by giving them incentives? Yes, it does make a lot of sense, Monica ji, and we should encourage them.
Okay, thank you, sir. These were the questions that we had today. Thank you for your insightful thoughts and igniting the minds of those present with us today. I also thank all the participants present with us today for the session. That's it for the session. Kindly note that the feedback form and quiz will be shared in the chat box and the WhatsApp group also for your perusal, please.
May I request the host to give rights to all the participants so that we can have a quick picture with sir. Everybody can switch on their cameras. Right.
It was really wonderful, sir. And not only the law school, I think I will try and connect you to the to my pro vice chancellor and the vice chancellor also. This is one of the finest sessions we have had, and maybe the others in the university can also be benefited with your views in maybe another event that we can organize with you. It will be wonderful having you once again with us, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure, sir. So kind. I am more than happy to do that.
May I request the participants to please switch on their cameras? We have given rights to everybody now, and then we'll have a quick picture with sir. All right. So I'll take a picture now. Okay. I'll wait for a minute more for others to join. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Major. Thanks, Dr. Yadav. Thanks, Ankita. Thanks so much for giving me this opportunity. And
thank you so much, sir. It was a great pleasure listening to you. I did have a lot of questions.
Thank
Thank you, Ankita. It was wonderful. A very good session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir. Thank you, everyone.